Chapter 15. A God Buys Us Cheeseburgers. The next afternoon, June 14th, 7 days before the solstice, our train rolled into Denver. We hadn't eaten since the night before in the dining car somewhere in Kansas. We hadn't taken a shower since Half-Blood Hill, and I was sure that was obvious. "Let's try to contact Chiron," Annabeth said. "I want to tell him about your talk with the river spirit." "We can't use phones, right?" "I'm not talking about phones." We wandered through downtown for about half an hour, though I wasn't sure what Annabeth was looking for. The air was hot and dry, which felt weird after the humidity of St. Louis. Everywhere we turned, the Rocky Mountains seemed to be staring at me like a tidal wave about to crash into the city. Finally, we found an empty do-it-yourself car wash. We veered toward the stall farthest from the street, keeping our eyes open for patrol cars. We were 3 adolescents hanging out at a car wash without a car. Any cop worth his donuts would figure we were up to no good. "What exactly are we doing?" I asked as Grover took out the spray gun. "It's 75 cents, he grumbled. "I've only got 2 quarters left. Annabeth?" "Don't look at me," she said. "The dining car wiped me out." I fished out my last bit of change and passed Grover a quarter, which left me 2 nickels and 1 drachma from Medusa's place. "Excellent," Grover said. "We could do it with a spray bottle, of course, but the connection isn't as good, and my arms get tired of pumping." "What are you talking about?" He fed in the quarters and set the knob to fine mist. IMing. Instant messaging? Iris messaging, Annabeth corrected. The rainbow goddess Iris carries messages for the gods. If you know how to ask and she's not too busy, she'll do the same for half-bloods. "You summon the goddess with a spray gun?" Grover pointed the nozzle in the air and water hissed out in a thick white mist. "Unless you know an easier way to make a rainbow." Sure enough, late afternoon light filtered through the vapor and broke into colors. Annabeth held her palm out to me. "Drachma, please." I handed it over. She raised the coin over her head. "O goddess, accept our offering." She threw the drachma into the rainbow. It disappeared in a golden shimmer. "Half-Blood Hill," Annabeth requested. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I was looking through the mist at strawberry fields and the Long Island Sound in the distance. We seemed to be on the porch of the big house. Standing with his back to us at the railing was sandy-haired guy in shorts and an orange tank top. He was holding a bronze sword and seemed to be staring intently at something down in the meadow. "Luke!" I called. He turned wide-eyed. I could swear he was standing 3 feet in front of me through a screen of mist, except I could only see the part of him that appeared in the rainbow. "Percy!" His scarred face broke into a grin. "Is that Annabeth, too? Thank the gods! Are you guys okay?" We're fine," Annabeth stammered. She was madly straightening her dirty T-shirt, trying to comb the loose hair out of her face. "We thought, Chiron, he's down at the cabins." Luke's smile faded. "We're having some issues with the campers. Listen, is everything cool with you guys? Is Grover all right?" "I'm right here," Grover called. He held the nozzle out to one side and stepped into Luke's line of vision. "What kind of issues?" Just then, a big Lincoln Continental pulled into the car wash with its stereo turned to maximum hip-hop. As the car slid into the next stall, the bass from the subwoofers vibrated so much it shook the pavement. Chiron had to... "What's that noise?" Luke yelled. "I'll take care of it," Annabeth yelled back, looking very relieved to have an excuse to get out of sight. "Grover, come on." "What?" Grover said. "But..." "Give Percy the nozzle and come on," she ordered. Grover muttered something about girls being harder to understand than the oracle at Delphi. Then he handed me the spray gun and followed Annabeth. I readjusted the hose so I could keep the rainbow going and still see Luke. "Chiron had to break up a fight," Luke shouted to me over the music. "Things are pretty tense here, Percy. Word leaked out about the Zeus-Poseidon standoff. We're still not sure how. Probably the same scumbag who summoned the Hellhound. Now the campers are starting to take sides. It's shaping up like the Trojan War all over again. Aphrodite, Ares, Apollo are backing Poseidon, more or less. Athena is backing Zeus. I shuddered to think that Clarice's cabin would ever be on my dad's side for anything. In the next stall, I heard Annabeth and some guy arguing with each other. Then the music's volume decreased drastically. "So what's your status?" Luke asked me. "Chiron will be sorry he missed you." I told him pretty much everything, including my dreams. It felt so good to see him, to feel like I was back at camp, even for a few minutes, that I didn't realize how long I had talked until the beeper went off on the spray machine, and I realized I only had one more minute before the water shut off. "I wish I could be there," Luke told me. "We can't help much from here, I'm afraid, but listen. It had to be Hades who took the Master Bolt. He was there at Olympus at the winter solstice. I was chaperoning a field trip and we saw him." "But Chiron said the gods can't take each other's magic items directly." "That's true," Luke said, looking troubled. "Still, Hades has the Helm of Darkness. How could anybody else sneak into the throne room and steal the Master Bolt? You'd have to be invisible." We were both silent until Luke seemed to realize what he'd said. "Oh, hey," he protested. "I didn't mean Annabeth. She and I have known each other forever. She would never. I mean, she's like a little sister to me." I wondered if Annabeth would like that description. In the stall next to us, the music stopped completely. A man screamed in terror, car doors slammed, and the Lincoln peeled out of the car wash. "You'd better go see what that was," Luke said. "Listen, are you wearing the flying shoes? I'll feel better if I know they've done you some good." Yeah." I tried not to sound like a guilty liar. "Yeah, they've come in handy." "Really?" he grinned. "They fit and everything?" The water shut off. The mist started to evaporate. "Well, take care of yourself out there in Denver," Luke called, his voice getting fainter. "And I'll tell Grover it'll be better this time. Nobody will get turned into a pine tree if he just—" But the mist was gone, and Luke's image faded to nothing. I was alone in a wet, empty car wash stall. Annabeth and Grover came around the corner, laughing, but stopped when they saw my face. Annabeth's smile faded. "What happened, Percy? What did Luke say?" "Not much," I lied, my stomach feeling as empty as a Big 3 cabin. "Come on, let's find some dinner." A few minutes later, we were sitting at a booth in a gleaming chrome diner. All around us, families were eating burgers and drinking malts and sodas. Finally, the waitress came over. She raised her eyebrows skeptically. "Well?" I said, we want to order dinner." "You kids have money to pay for it?" Grover's lip quivered. I was afraid he would start bleeding, or worse, start eating the linoleum. Annabeth looked ready to pass out from hunger. I was trying to think up a sob story for the waitress when a rumble shook the whole building. A motorcycle the size of a baby elephant had pulled up to the curb. All conversation in the diner stopped. The motorcycle's headlight glared red. Its gas tank had flames painted on it and a shotgun holster riveted to either side, complete with shotguns. The seat was leather, but leather that looked like, well, Caucasian human skin. The guy on the bike would have made 2 pro wrestlers run for mama. He was dressed in a red muscle shirt and black jeans and a black leather duster with a hunting knife strapped to his thigh. He wore red wraparound shades and he had the cruelest, most brutal face I'd ever seen. Handsome, I guess, but wicked. With an oily black crew cut and cheeks that were scarred from many, many fights. The weird thing was, I felt like I'd seen his face somewhere before. As he walked into the diner, a hot, dry wind blew through the place. All the people rose as if they were hypnotized, but the biker waved his hand dismissively and they all sat down again. Everybody went back to their conversations. The waitress blinked as if somebody had just pressed the rewind button in her brain. She asked us again, "You kids have money to pay for it?" The biker said, "It's on me." He slid into our booth, which was way too small for him, and crowded Annabeth against the window. He looked up at the waitress, who was gaping at him, and said, "Are you still here?" He pointed at her, and she stiffened. She turned as if she'd been spun around, and then marched back toward the kitchen. The biker looked at me. I couldn't see his eyes behind the red shades, but bad feelings started boiling in my stomach. Anger, resentment, bitterness. I wanted it to hit a wall. I wanted to pick a fight with somebody. Who did this guy think he was? He gave me a wicked grin. "So you're old Seaweed's kid, huh?" I should have been surprised or scared, but instead I felt like I was looking at my stepdad, Gabe. I wanted to rip this guy's head off. "What's it to you?" Annabeth's eyes flashed me a warning. "Percy, this is..." The biker raised his hand. "It's okay," he said. "I don't mind a little attitude, long as you remember who's the boss. You know who I am, little cousin?" Then it struck me why this guy looked so familiar. He had the same vicious sneer as some of the kids at Camp Half-Blood, the ones from Cabin 5. "You're Clarice's dad," I said. "Ares, god of war." Ares grinned and took off his shades. Where his eyes should have been, there was only fire, empty sockets glowing with miniature nuclear explosions. "That's right, punk. I heard you broke Clarice's spear. She was asking for it." "Probably. That's cool. I don't fight my kids' fights, you know. What I'm here for, I heard you were in town. I got a little proposition for you." The waitress came back with heaping trays of food. Cheeseburgers, fries, onion rings, chocolate shakes. Ares handed her a few gold drachmas. She looked nervously at the coins. "But these aren't..." Ares pulled out his huge knife and started cleaning his fingernails. "Problem, sweetheart." The waitress swallowed, then left with the gold. "You can't do that," I told Ares. "You can't just threaten people with a knife." Ares laughed. "Are you kidding? I love this country. Best place since Sparta. Don't you carry a weapon, punk? You should. Dangerous world out there. Which brings me to my proposition. I need you to do me a favor." "What favor could I do for a god?" "Something a god doesn't have time to do for himself. It's nothing much. I left my shield at an abandoned water park here in town. I was going on a little date with my girlfriend. We were interrupted. I left my shield behind. I want you to fetch it for me. Why don't you go back and get it for yourself?" The fire in his eye sockets glowed a little hotter. "Why don't I turn you into a prairie dog and run you over with my Harley? Because I don't feel like it. A god is giving you an opportunity to prove yourself, Percy Jackson. Will you prove yourself a coward?" He leaned forward. "Or maybe you only fight when there's a river to dive into so your daddy can protect you." Ooh, I wanted to punch this guy, but somehow I knew he was waiting for that. Ares' power was causing my anger. He'd love it if I attacked. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. "We're not interested," I said. "We've already got a quest." Ares' fiery eyes made me see things I didn't want to see. Blood and smoke and corpses on the battlefield. "I know all about your quest, punk. When that item was first stolen, Zeus sent his best out looking for it. Apollo, Athena, Artemis, and me, naturally. If I couldn't sniff out a weapon that powerful..." He licked his lips as if the very thought of the master bolt made him hungry. "Well, if I couldn't find it, you got no hope. Nevertheless, I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. Your dad and I go way back. After all, I'm the one who told him my suspicions about old corpse breath." "You told him Hades stole the bolt?" "Sure. Framing somebody to start a war? Oldest trick in the book. I recognized it immediately. In a way, You got me to thank for your little quest. Thanks, I grumbled. Hey, I'm a generous guy. Just do my little job, and I'll help you on your way. I'll arrange a ride west for you and your friends. We're doing fine on our own. Yeah, right. No money, no wheels, no clue what you're up against. Help me out, and maybe I'll tell you something you need to know. Something about your mom. My mom? He grinned. Oh, that got your attention. The water park is a mile west on Delancey. You can't miss it. Look for the Tunnel of Love ride. What interrupted your date? I asked. Something scare you off? Aries bared his teeth. But I'd seen his threatening look before on Clarice. There was something false about it, almost like he was nervous. You're lucky you met me, punk, and not one of the other Olympians. They're not as forgiving of rudeness as I am. I'll meet you back here when you're done. Don't disappoint me. After that, I must have fainted or fallen into a trance, because when I opened my eyes again, Aries was gone. I might have thought the conversation had been a dream, but Annabeth and Grover's expression told me otherwise. Not good, Grover said. Aries sought you out, Percy. This is not good. I stared out the window. The motorcycle had disappeared. Did Aries really know something about my mom? Or was he just playing with me? Now that he was gone, all the anger had drained out of me. I realized Aries must love to mess with people's emotions. That was his power, cranking up the passions so badly they clouded your ability to think. It's probably some kind of trick, I said. Forget Aries. Let's just go. We can't, Annabeth said. Look, I hate Aries as much as anybody, but you don't ignore the gods unless you want serious bad fortune. He wasn't kidding about turning you into a rodent. I looked down at my cheeseburger, which suddenly didn't seem so appetizing. Why does he need us? Maybe it's a problem that requires brains, Annabeth said. Aries has strength. That's all he has. Even strength has to bow to wisdom sometimes. But this water park, he acted almost scared. What would make a war god run away like that? Annabeth and Grover glanced nervously at each other. Annabeth said, I'm afraid we'll have to find out.